Okay, I'm going to use this video as a quick tutorial on weighted grades. In a nutshell, the tests are worth 50% of a course grade for a marking period, quizzes are worth 30%, and assessments are worth 10%, homework is 10%. In my classroom, the difference between assessments and homework is that homework is a completion grade, which means it is not graded for correctness, it's just completion. Assessments are graded for correctness, but they are a step down from quizzes because it might just be on one specific lesson. Quizzes are normally a lesson or two, and then tests are the entire unit. The formula used for calculating a course grade based on these weighted averages is to take 0.5 for the 50%, multiply it by the test average for the marking period. 0.3 gets multiplied by the average grade for all the quizzes, so averaging all those quiz grades together. And then also for the assessments gets multiplied by 0.1, and the homework average gets multiplied by 0.1. So let's say that for tests, a student has a 90% average over however many tests they might have, 2 or 3 in a marking period. Quizzes, an 80% average, I don't know, maybe out of 4 or 5 quizzes, 95% average on the assessments, again, not sure how many they had, and 70% on the homework. So a little bit busy on the night times and can't seem to get that homework done all the time. So if we plug this in, these numbers, so and as whole numbers, so not as percentages, the decimals take the consideration into the weight. So 90, 80, 95, and 70, and plugging that in to the formula, this student has an 85.5% average in the marking period grade. If we take a closer look at this formula, there's a test average here. Well, it's an average, and so one would hope that there's more than one test in a marking period, more than one quiz, same thing, more than one assessment, and more than one homework. The question becomes, how are the tests within that category averaged, quizzes, like within a category, how are those things averaged? So let's take a look at an example with the quizzes. Let's say that there are 2 quizzes in this particular marking period, so quiz 1 and quiz 2. Let's say that quiz 1 was out of 20 points and student earned 100% on the first quiz. Then the second quiz showed with some difficulty, and out of 30 points, you only got 15, which was a 50%. So in my eyes, professionally, I want this student to have a represented 75% average for their quiz grade. So that is what I want. The other way to do this, however, is to use total points, where the quiz becomes their quiz grades or their quiz average gets filled in using, well, they've earned 35 out of a possible 50 points. So notice here that this 35 is coming from the 20 plus the 15, and the 20 plus the 30 gives us the 50. So out of the 50 total quiz points, they earned 35 quiz points. This ends up giving the student a 70% average on the quizzes. And I know that this 70 is lower than the 75, so you're like, well, I definitely want the purple. Thank you, Mrs. Orleski, for using the purple method. The point is that this method here in green over here, this gives the second quiz, this gives quiz 2 more weight within a category, simply because it's worth more points. And I don't professionally think that that is fair. Just because something is more points, it just means it might have more steps. It doesn't mean, in my opinion, that the quiz material is any more important than the quiz material in the first quiz. So maybe I had a shorter quiz, we just made it at a quick 20 points. Second one was a little bit more detailed, still important information, so it had to be worth 30 points. And so I want these quizzes to have the same weight, so they get turned into percents first, and then that percent gets averages. And this is what I would want to have happen, whether this ended up being higher or not. So what I mean about it possibly not being higher is, like, now let's say that the first quiz out of 20 is where the student earned the 50%, and the second quiz out of 30 is where they earn the 100%. So again, from this, using the purple, what I want to have happen is they still have a 75% quiz average, and that's what would go in this part of the formula for their overall course grade. If we use the total points based on it, then now this student has a 40 out of 50 out of possible quiz points, and this is now 80%. So this may seem nice that it's higher than the 75%, but it's still giving quiz 2 more weight, which makes it feel more important than quiz 1, which it shouldn't be. So within a category, the average needs to be based off of percents. So what Skyward does with the weighted averages is that within a category, it adds up the total points earned and divides by the total points possible. So that green ink, that option that was on the left-hand side of the screens, that's how it was calculating the average for each category. So the only way for me to fix that, since not all of my homework assignments are worth the same point value, is to make them all worth the same point value by turning it into percents. So in my grade book, my handwriting, they get a 4 out of 5 for their homework, or a 9 out of 10, or whatever the homework assignment might have been, and that's in my handwritten grade book. But when I put it into Skyward, I use percents so that every assignment is worth the same amount. Otherwise, Skyward will weight the 15-point assignment worth more than the 5-point assignment, and I don't want it to do that. Thank you.